everybody, welcome to Superhuman Customs. I'm Stephen Human. As you can see, I am in my new office in our new house. And while the videos have been continuing to come out and we haven't really skipped a beat, I have not customized something in several months, honestly. I did the Azrael Batman super fast because I found him over Labor Day or Memorial Day, but I haven't done anything other than that. So we've been in here for a couple of weeks. I finally got everything put together. Life is kind of returning to normal, and I figured we're gonna jump in with our first custom of the new house, and I wanted to do this Supergirl. Now, I got the 3-pack of her, the Batman, and the Dr. Fate for 25 bucks. I think it was 24, $24 on Amazon. And so when I saw her, I wanted to make her the more modern, like what Supergirl is wearing now, right now in the comics. But I don't like her hair at all. So what I did is that I found this wrestling figure for 10 bucks, and it had 2 heads, which is great because I can use the head for whatever. But we're going to remove the hair off of both of these ladies, put this longer hair on her, and we're going to make her a more classic, even though it's a more modern Supergirl. So I'm very excited to be customizing again, and let's jump right in, make this Supergirl something special. All right, I've had her soaking for a few minutes in some hot water. Let's go ahead and remove her head and yank this hair off. And the water in my new house is not quite as hot as the water in my old house. So this is gonna take a little bit of getting used to, because like I gotta go right up to a tap, and at least especially downstairs, and it would just be like scalding hot. And this is not as hot. So I'm gonna have to play around a little bit, but as you can see, the hair is coming off after having soaked. And then we'll do the same thing with the wrestler head. Took some elbow grease to get the hair off of the wrestler because the hair is a little more rubbery, but as you can see, we just need to sand down her head a little bit, and we should be able to get this hair to fit. So that's our next step. So I sanded down her head and I was able to get the hair on. I had to carve out a little bit in the inside, but it was pretty good. Now what I'm gonna do is, obviously because it doesn't fill in her whole head, I'll take some fabric paint, like you guys have seen me do many times in the past, and we're just gonna add some hair here over the top. And I'm using the black so that it will more match the brown once I go over with the yellow and such. So we'll just do that and then get to some more painting. Now you can see I painted the hair brown where it was black, and then I added a little bit more fabric paint, and I decided to go with yellow just to add a highlight. And what we're gonna do now is we're just gonna take some yellow and we're going to brush it on over the hair. Now, what I've found is that most yellows are pretty liquidy. They are not, so it's harder to dry brush. I have 2 different kinds. I'm just using this Vallejo right now, and then I'm going to use the Citadel. And both of them are pretty liquidy, so you're going to have to go on in layers and start with the darker of the 2, and then go on over the top with the other. And so that's just what we're going to do over entire head, and then try and hopefully have a good looking Supergirl at the end. Now that that's dry, I'm going to go through and I'm just going to add some lines with this lighter yellow. And what I found is that with this, obviously with that other yellow, going through and dry brushing is not really an option. It's just not, this paint is too thin. The yellow is just too thin on both counts, on this one and on the Citadel. So I think if I go through and I just do what I would do if I was drawing a picture working on Photoshop, I'm going to just highlight areas with the yellow, and it will end up looking like the light is catching those parts of her hair. So that's just what I'm going to do. Nice and simple. And if I need to go through and darken it up afterwards, then I can with the other paint. Add some details, but I think this way it's going to look pretty good. And we're getting some, you can see those darker in places and lighter. That'll give it more of a natural tone because that's how hair normally looks. So that's what we're going for. All right, now what we're going to do is I'm going to take a little bit of white and I'm just going to dry brush it over the top of the yellow, because no one's hair is actually yellow. It's always got a mixture. And as you can see with her hair, how we've got it right now, it's got darker undertones, two different tones of yellow, and if we dry brush on some white to catch the edges, then it's going to look that much better. If you remember the Neron action figure that I did, we did this too. And it is what ended up making him look really, really good, was the dusting of white. So that is what we are going to do. So I've washed her with soap and water to get all the oils off so I can start painting. But what I realized is that the version of Supergirl that I'm making, which is the new one that's been around for the last couple of years, she has like kind of a V belt here. And so what we're going to do is we're just going to add some Milliput here and glue it in place. Got a little bit of super glue. And what we can do is we can just slowly pat it like how we've done in the past and get it so that it's nice and smooth. And it's probably not going to be a perfect V, and that's okay for me. What I'm going to do is I'm going to pat it down, and then if I need to cut it into a V, I can, or if I like it more rounded, which I think I probably do. I mean, this is going to be perfect anyway because she has a jacket on and it's got red and stuff. We're just going to paint that on. I'm not going to, I like the color scheme. I'm not going to add, you know, a bunch of, like, give her a coat or something like that. I don't want to do that. But this way I can at least have a 3D raised section for that belt. And remember, as we learned, that if you pat it like this, the heat from your fingers smooths it out and makes it so that you don't have to generally sand it down. Sometimes you do, but most of the time I found that I don't. It gets nice and shiny and it looks good. So that will be our super. We'll let that dry for a little while, and then we will start painting this a very light blue and this red. While the Milliput is drying, I'm going to go ahead and paint her arms. And her arms are half red and half black, so the inside is black and the outside is red, because she wears like a kind of a jacket. That's what they all are wearing currently in Action Comics. And I want her to match the Superboy Con-El and my Con Keenan that I did last year. So I'm going to put her in that costume. And even though she's not wearing the jacket, it will have the right colors. So I'm just going to go over and do both arms with the red while the Milliput is drying. I like to use my time wisely, as wisely as I can when I'm customizing. While I've got the red out, I'm just going to hit some of these areas here that need to be red and get right up next to the Milliput, even though it's not quite dry yet. It should be just fine. And I'm going to go over the S because she has, the one of the things I don't like about this character is the switch of the red and the yellow. I really don't like that. I like I enjoy like Valzad's because it's white and red, but it's different. It's not switched, and I've never liked when they switch them. But that's the one thing I don't like about the Calvin Ellis, the Superman from Earth, whatever it is, 21 or 20, something like that, is that he has the S swapped with the red and the yellow. I just don't care for that. So I do need to make a Calvin Ellis, and I will make him accurate and correct, even though I don't like that. It's fine. Let's get some of this red. She's looking good. She has a very light blue here for the pants, and I've got that perfect powder blue that works so well on a lot of these figures. That's the thing. I mean, so many people, they want to have like a specific color, or they seek a specific color for things. And for me, like, the colors change in the comics based off of what profile they're using. They're never quite the same. And so for me, if I have base paints that are more or less what it is, I'm going to go for it. I'm not going to worry about, oh, well, it's not quite this shade. Because in some comics, it absolutely is this shade. So don't be afraid to just, you know, if you don't want to buy a whole bunch of paints, just stick with what you got, use them, and 9 times out of 10, they're going to work out just fine. The blue is dry, so let's get into black. And now I'm going to have to go a little bit more subtly on some of these lines. And I'll go back over it with a smaller brush to make sure everything is crisp. But for now, just make sure these edges look pretty good. And then get the rest all nice and covered. And while we got the black out, let's go ahead and hit these areas here. This is moving fairly quickly, which is nice. Because honestly, I'm more excited about the next couple that I'm doing. When we moved into the house, like I knew that this Supergirl was ready to go, that I could just paint her, I had all the parts, we were good to start. And since then, I've gotten a couple of figures that I'm more excited about, like the steel, because that's going to be a really cool metallic job. And then just yesterday, someone brought up Guy Gardner, and I was like, oh my gosh, and I ended up just having the perfect figure as the base. So I'm super excited about doing Guy Gardner. So let's get Supergirl done. And then, I mean, not that I'm not excited about this, I think she's turning out great. I'm just more excited about these other couple. We'll move on to those. Now we're going to get the S in here with this yellow. And remember, the yellows that I have are quite thin, and so I'm going to have to do a couple of coats in here, but we'll get it taken care of. And then what we're going to do is I'm going to take some fabric paint, because she has like yellow divider lines between the red and the black. I'm going to do what I did on those Green Lanterns. I'm just going to do the same thing. I'm going to do a really thin layer of the yellow on there, and that will give it its dividing line. And I think that that will be where we'll stop for today, because it'll take a good 7-8 hours for that to dry. So that is the plan going forward. Now that the yellow's all done and dry, I'm just going to go through and do some cleanup on the red here. Nice and simple. And this is key for when painting a Superman sign. You guys have seen that a number of times. Generally, when you go through and you get the yellow, you're going to get it on the red. So just know that going in, and then clean it up. Now that we got all the yellow in place, I'm just going to do a light coating of gold, because most of her, at least in most of her appearances, it looks as if, and I just got a text, it looks as if it's metallic, and so I'm just going to add a little bit of metallic to all these spots here. Just a nice light coat, just to give it a little bit of a metallic sheen. And that's it. And I think we're getting pretty close to just clear coating, and I keep getting texts. I've told you guys before, if you want to start having people text you, hit record while you're painting. So this wasn't something I was planning on doing, but I'm going to add a little bit of metallic to her pants. I think it'll look really nice. And as you're hearing my children probably scream and yell, I should have closed the door to my office, but I didn't, because I like the airflow in my new office. So next time, I will remember to close the door so that when they're playing out there, you won't hear them. And there we go. Supergirl. Really happy with how she turned out. Now, obviously, in the comics, she doesn't have the cape right now, but this is the look. And I think it's very unique. It's very original. I love how the hair turned out. I really didn't like this Supergirl from the moment she was announced, and now I think she's awesome. So here we go. Thank you guys so much for watching. I'll see you next week.